Suga's return from a foreign country recently drew attention, not only because of his busy schedule abroad, but also due to his remarks about his physical condition and his upcoming plans, which naturally captured public interest, particularly among fans who closely follow his day-to-day activities. Upon arriving at the airport, Suga appeared in his usual understated style, dressed in dark tones with a black cap covering part of his face, a look that has long been associated with him whenever he is in public spaces. His expression remained calm, despite the constant presence of cameras and the crowd surrounding him, and in that moment, he showed a sense of professionalism, even though signs of fatigue after the long journey were evident. Shortly afterward, reports began circulating about how he openly acknowledged that his body still needed attention after the overseas trip, as, even though Suga is known for his resilience, the demanding schedules he frequently faces often bring him to a natural point of exhaustion that any internationally active artist would encounter. Both local and international media noted that he did not attempt to conceal this reality, instead presenting the candid acknowledgement that he must be more mindful about taking care of his health amidst ongoing work commitments. This statement was widely viewed as genuine and realistic, reflecting Suga's tendency to maintain a transparent and balanced relationship with the public without crafting an exaggerated image of himself. Following this, discussions arose about his upcoming travels, which were said to be related to both work and personal creative pursuits. Although the specifics of his next destination were not disclosed, what was clear is that Suga emphasized his intention to continue with his activities while taking a more careful approach toward his well-being, ensuring he could balance the energy required for work and for rest. Many observers interpreted this as a mature stance, showing that he prioritizes quality and sustainability over excessive productivity. At the same time, his arrival highlighted the typical dynamics of a global celebrity's life, where both departures and returns at airports consistently attract attention, not only from the media, but also from fans who see these moments as rare opportunities to witness their idol in person. While simple, such occasions often evolve into larger topics of conversation because they embody the connection between artist and audience, coupled with how the artist addresses questions regarding their current state. In Suga's case, his openness about feeling fatigued yet continuing with his scheduled work made people appreciate him as someone who remains consistent in presenting himself authentically, without hiding the human side that naturally accompanies even the most successful figures. This is why coverage of his return did not stop at visual documentation, but expanded into broader discussions about how a major musician manages his personal well-being amidst the immense expectations surrounding him. This initial account ultimately portrays a natural glimpse into Suga's life, illustrating how he responded to his physical condition with honesty, while preparing himself for further travels that are sure to once again draw public attention. Suga's activities following his return continued to attract attention as he was soon seen engaging in routine tasks that reflected both his personal discipline and professional responsibilities, giving a clear picture of how he balances rest with the demands of his career. After spending time at home to recover from his long flight, he resumed light schedules within the city that included internal meetings and creative sessions, which, according to reports, were connected to both ongoing and upcoming projects. Observers noted that his pace was steady rather than rushed, an approach that underlined his earlier statement about being more attentive to his health while remaining consistent in his commitments. The fact that he did not withdraw entirely from the public eye, but instead managed his appearances selectively, was interpreted as a sign of his awareness that his presence carries significant weight, not only for his professional circle, but also for his fans who closely follow his every step. On one occasion, Suga was spotted at a studio building, where his arrival and departure were documented by media outlets that highlighted his calm demeanor and minimal interaction with the surrounding crowd, a style that has long characterized his way of moving through professional environments without unnecessary spectacle. From a journalistic perspective, this period marked a transition from the physical fatigue he acknowledged earlier to a phase of measured productivity, suggesting that he understands the importance of pacing himself in order to maintain continuity in his artistic output. At the same time, conversations about his next international trip began circulating, with sources emphasizing that the travel was already planned in advance and would be an integral part of his ongoing activities, rather than a sudden addition to his schedule. This brought reassurance to fans and commentators who initially expressed concern over whether his condition might force delays or cancellations. Instead, Suga's calm approach and gradual return to a normal rhythm reinforced the impression that he is capable of navigating the pressures of his profession in a grounded and thoughtful manner. The days following his arrival thus presented a realistic narrative of how a global artist integrates recovery into a busy lifestyle without detaching from responsibilities, an aspect often overlooked in public discussions that tend to focus solely on glamorous or dramatic moments. By maintaining a balance between appearing in public settings and retreating into private spaces for rest, Suga demonstrated a lifestyle that many considered both professional and relatable, reminding observers that even figures at the peak of international fame must manage their well-being in ordinary, human ways. In the following days, Suga's routine became a subject of continued observation as he carefully combined periods of preparation with deliberate moments of rest, a rhythm that conveyed his ongoing effort to keep himself steady ahead of his next scheduled journey. Reports described how he maintained a consistent presence at several work-related locations, including studios and company facilities, while still allocating sufficient time for recuperation at home, which was evident from the limited frequency of his public appearances. The media noted that his style of moving between spaces remained understated, with his trademark simple clothing choices and quiet demeanor that contrasted sharply with the large attention he inevitably drew, a detail that underscored how he continues to prefer functionality and privacy over spectacle. Industry insiders emphasized that the upcoming trip was directly linked to professional commitments that required his involvement. And while specific dates and destinations were not officially disclosed, it was clear that the travel was structured into his calendar in a way that allowed for gradual preparation rather than abrupt departures. This practical approach highlighted the discipline that has long been associated with Suga's work ethic, as he is known for balancing his creative responsibilities with pragmatic planning. Fans who followed updates through media outlets expressed appreciation for the fact that he neither dramatized his condition nor downplayed it, choosing instead to move forward with a level of transparency that reassured them about his readiness. From a journalistic angle, these developments painted a portrait of an artist who recognizes the realities of international work, while consciously managing the personal cost that comes with it. And in doing so, he offered a relatable image of someone navigating a demanding yet rewarding career. During this phase, coverage also captured the way he interacted with his immediate environment, such as the brief acknowledgments he made when seen entering or leaving buildings. Gestures that, while minimal, reflected a consistent courtesy that has been a hallmark of his public persona. This balance between visibility and restraint became an essential part of the narrative, showing that even in moments when there is little dramatic change, the steady progression of daily life remains meaningful to both fans and observers. Ultimately, this period served as a natural continuation of the earlier chapters of his return, presenting a clear trajectory from recovery toward readiness, with each small action reinforcing the sense that Suga was aligning himself with the requirements of his next international responsibility, while keeping his well-being intact. As the time for his next journey drew nearer, Suga's activities reflected a calm but steady rhythm that demonstrated both readiness and careful consideration, a stage that observers interpreted as the natural progression of his earlier statements about maintaining balance between health and work. Coverage of his movements revealed that he kept his schedule measured, appearing at key locations related to his professional duties while continuing to avoid unnecessary exposure, a choice consistent with his long-standing preference for maintaining privacy in public settings. At the same time, preparations for his travel became more apparent as reports described how logistical arrangements were underway, from coordination with staff to subtle adjustments in his routine that suggested he was gradually transitioning from a recovery-focused period into a travel-ready state. The media emphasized that this was not presented as a dramatic shift, but rather as part of the ordinary flow of an international artist's career, where departures and arrivals form an expected rhythm that nonetheless holds significance for fans who closely follow every step. Observers also noted the way Suga carried himself with composure during brief public sightings, his attire remaining understated and his gestures minimal yet courteous, reinforcing the consistent image of professionalism that has long defined his presence. These details, while simple, provided texture to the broader narrative by highlighting how a global celebrity manages the intersections of work, health, and visibility in ways that feel both practical and human. Industry commentary during this period frequently returned to the theme of sustainability, pointing out that Suga's approach to pacing himself set an example within an industry often characterized by relentless schedules. For fans, the anticipation of his next trip was less about speculation on the exact destination and more about the reassurance that he was approaching it responsibly, with clear signs of preparation and self-awareness. In the broader media cycle, his movements became a reminder that behind the global image lies a routine filled with measured steps, careful planning, and ordinary considerations that anyone who travels frequently might recognize. The final picture of this stage was therefore one of continuity rather than climax, an artist moving forward in alignment with his commitments, acknowledging his own limits while remaining consistent in his dedication. In closing this sequence, the image that remained was of Suga as a figure who integrates his personal reality with professional obligations seamlessly, presenting not a spectacle, but a grounded narrative of steady progress, offering a relatable glimpse into the life of someone whose global stature does not diminish the fundamental human need to move carefully, rest sufficiently, and prepare thoughtfully for what lies ahead. The period following his preparations for departure unfolded with a sense of continuity that reinforced the narrative of Suga's measured approach to work and travel, as reports indicated that he began transitioning into the final stages before his next international engagement with the same understated demeanor that had characterized his earlier movements. Media coverage described how his routine remained focused on essential activities, from selective visits to professional spaces to quiet intervals of rest that balanced out the demands of planning, a rhythm that suggested he was intentionally keeping his pace steady rather than allowing external attention to dictate his actions. Observers pointed out that his way of carrying himself had not shifted into anything dramatic, but instead continued in the same vein of composure, which for many highlighted his consistent ability to remain grounded despite the weight of expectation that surrounded him. Journalists covering the story often emphasized the logistical aspects of his upcoming travel, noting the visible signs of preparation in terms of staff coordination and scheduling. Yet they also remarked on the way Suga himself seemed to navigate the process with calm practicality, offering little beyond what was necessary while allowing the facts of his movement to speak for themselves. This quiet consistency became a focal point in discussions, as commentators highlighted how it contrasted with the often sensationalized portrayals of celebrity life, presenting instead a portrait of someone who manages the flow of his commitments in ways that are deliberate, measured, and realistic. Fans, for their part, expressed steady support through online platforms, sharing updates and reflections not on speculation or dramatization, but on appreciation for the fact that Suga was approaching his responsibilities with self-awareness and balance. As the day of travel drew closer, his actions embodied the natural rhythm of preparation that accompanies any international journey, from the gradual wrapping up of local activities to the quiet anticipation of what awaited abroad. What distinguished the sequence in the public eye was not an unexpected twist, but rather the steadiness with which he navigated the process, a steadiness that spoke volumes about his maturity and professionalism. In this way, the narrative advanced smoothly, moving from his earlier return and acknowledgement of fatigue into a stage where readiness replaced recovery, not as a sudden shift, but as a gradual alignment with the flow of his obligations. The outcome was a portrayal that felt authentic and relatable, reminding observers that even in the life of a global figure, the preparation for travel is shaped by simple, practical steps that mirror the experiences of many, only magnified by the attention that accompanies his status. This steady unfolding of events concluded with the sense that Suga's journey forward was not defined by spectacle, but by a grounded integration of health, work, and responsibility, offering a glimpse into the quiet discipline that underpins his public role. As Suga finally entered the phase of departure for his next international journey, the coverage around him naturally shifted to the setting of the airport once again, a location that has often served as the visible marker of transitions in his career and personal routine. And this time, the narrative centered on how he carried himself in the context of readiness rather than recovery. Media descriptions highlighted his arrival at the terminal in his familiar, understated fashion, with dark attire and minimal accessories, a choice that not only reflected his personal style, but also underscored his preference for practicality over display when navigating public spaces. Observers noted that while the environment around him was filled with attention from both cameras and fans, his demeanor remained steady, calm, and unhurried, giving the impression that he was fully aligned with the flow of his schedule and comfortable with the visibility that such moments inevitably bring. From a journalistic perspective, the departure illustrated the seamless continuity of his earlier preparations, as the logistical arrangements that had been anticipated in recent days now materialized into concrete movement, with staff coordination and travel processes unfolding in a structured manner that left little room for speculation or disruption. The focus of reporting therefore shifted from questions about his condition to observations of his composure, as commentators pointed out that his earlier acknowledgement of needing to care for his health was now balanced by the evident readiness with which he embarked on his new assignment. For fans following the updates in real time, the scene served less as a spectacle and more as reassurance, affirming that he had managed his transition responsibly and was entering this new phase of activity with both professionalism and self-awareness. Analysts within the industry framed this departure as representative of the broader reality faced by global artists, where international mobility is an inherent part of work, and the ability to manage it with balance becomes a key factor in sustaining long-term success. In this context, Suga's example was often cited as a demonstration of how authenticity and discipline can coexist in a career that is constantly in the public eye, offering a counterpoint to the more sensationalized depictions that often dominate celebrity narratives. What emerged was a grounded account of an artist moving forward in alignment with his commitments, marked not by drama, but by steady progress and practical execution. The reporting concluded by situating this moment within the broader continuum of his professional journey, noting that his departure symbolized not only the start of another work phase, but also the culmination of a sequence that began with his candid reflection on fatigue, moved through deliberate recovery and preparation, and arrived at the point of confident movement toward the future. Upon his arrival in the next destination, Suga's presence was once again documented in a manner that reflected both the scale of his global influence and the simplicity with which he personally navigates such transitions, as reports highlighted his steady composure from the moment he stepped into the new environment. Observers described how he moved through the arrival terminal with the same understated fashion choices that had accompanied him at departure, suggesting continuity in his approach to public appearances while also emphasizing comfort for long-haul travel. Journalists covering the scene remarked that while the airport setting was filled with attention from fans and media, Suga kept his gestures minimal, focusing on the process of travel itself rather than offering any unnecessary display, a style that reinforced his reputation as a figure who prioritizes function and calmness over spectacle. Industry commentary noted that his immediate activities upon landing were tied closely to his professional schedule, with reports mentioning that staff and local teams were already coordinating his next steps, signaling a smooth transition into the responsibilities that awaited him abroad. From a broader perspective, this stage represented the natural continuation of the trajectory that began with his candid acknowledgement of fatigue upon returning home, followed by deliberate recovery and measured preparation, and now culminating in the active engagement of his international commitments. Fans observing updates online expressed appreciation that his movements demonstrated balance, with his health visibly managed and his demeanor unchanged, thereby reassuring them that he was proceeding responsibly even amid the demands of global travel. Journalists interpreted this consistency as evidence of Suga's maturity in handling the intersection of personal well-being and professional obligations, a skill seen as crucial for sustaining longevity in an industry where schedules often push artists to extremes. Coverage also pointed out how his behavior contrasted with the intensity of the environment surrounding him, noting that even while cameras captured every angle, his restraint and steadiness created a narrative less about spectacle and more about discipline. In this way, the moment of arrival was not portrayed as an isolated highlight, but as part of the ordinary yet significant flow of his career, where travel, work, and health converge into a balanced routine. The reporting framed this development as both reassuring and instructive, offering audiences a realistic glimpse into how a global celebrity sustains forward momentum not through dramatization, but through careful alignment with each step of the journey. As a result, his arrival became not just a logistical update, but also a continuation of the grounded portrayal of Suga as an artist who manages the realities of international life with composure, authenticity, and responsibility. In the days following his arrival, Suga settled into a rhythm that illustrated how seamlessly he integrates international travel with the professional responsibilities awaiting him, as reports described a steady routine marked by scheduled commitments, private downtime, and measured public appearances that together painted a picture of balance. Observers noted that his activities were concentrated around studio visits, production meetings, and other creative engagements, suggesting that the trip was not only about maintaining visibility, but also about progressing tangible projects that required his direct involvement. Journalists covering his movements emphasized that while his schedule was indeed full, the pace appeared intentional rather than overwhelming, consistent with the approach he had outlined earlier about protecting his health while fulfilling work obligations. This alignment between his statements and his actions drew positive commentary from industry analysts, who pointed out that such consistency strengthens his reputation as a disciplined and thoughtful artist, capable of navigating global demands without sacrificing sustainability. Fans who followed updates through social media and press coverage expressed admiration for the calm steadiness with which he carried out his commitments, noting that even in moments of high attention, his demeanor remained unchanged, focused on the work at hand rather than the spectacle surrounding it. Reports also highlighted the way Suga's personal style continued to reflect simplicity, with understated clothing and minimal accessories, reinforcing the image of someone who prioritizes comfort and practicality while on the move. This understated presence, contrasted against the high-profile nature of his environment, became a recurring theme in media narratives, which often framed it as a reminder that global figures can embody both prominence and humility simultaneously. In broader commentary, his trip was positioned as another demonstration of how international artists operate within cycles of travel, creation, and recovery. Cycles that are often invisible to the public, but crucial for sustaining long-term careers. The focus was therefore not on sensational details, but on the natural flow of his routine, showing how he divides his time between creative output and necessary moments of rest, even in a foreign setting. By the end of this period, the coverage concluded that Suga's activities abroad had reaffirmed the trajectory first set in motion upon his return home, an honest acknowledgement of fatigue followed by deliberate care, gradual preparation, and ultimately the steady execution of international responsibilities. This continuation underscored a narrative of professionalism grounded in realism, offering audiences a clear and relatable understanding of how he manages the complexities of his life with composure and authenticity, qualities that remain central to his public image.